Yeah, you need momentum on this.
What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I'm Eric and we are Ryden Dirty. And today I want to talk about downhill bikes. That's right, everyone. I want to talk about downhill bikes. I've never ridden a downhill bike, but Jamie decided that he was going to buy a downhill bike the other day. So he bought it, he brought it over. Today, we're going to ride two different bikes. We're going to do a long travel enduro versus a downhill bike. And I've never ridden one, Jamie's never ridden one, so we're just going to be trying it out and seeing how it is. I mean, honestly, I've heard a lot of good things about downhill bikes. We're going to be hitting our double black diamond local trail on Mingus Mountain called Trail 28. And we're just gonna smash. But we're both gonna try both bikes. So what's gonna happen is I'm gonna take the first run down on the YT. Jamie's gonna ride his Vitus Summit, and then we're gonna swap bikes so we can have a really good comparison based on a long travel enduro versus a downhill bike. Plus it's a YT tues, and I really wanna ride this thing anyway. It's a badass bike. I mean, look at that thing. I think it's sick. Oh snap, who could it be? Jesse the Dirt Jumper. What up, brother? Good to see you. We're gonna go hit some downhill trails right now with Jesse. Jesse's ready to roll out. He came all the way up from Phoenix and we're gonna smash. Let's do it, brother. Let's get it. Oh, you have the Fox one too? I forgot that you got the Fox one. Because it's the best pump ever. 2011.
That's what it says, 2011.
Shit, and that's the model number.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure it wasn't built in 2011. Dude, the dirt is looking pretty fresh. It's gonna be hero dirt today.
Yes, definitely. It looks nice.
Dude, sick. You ready to throw your bike in there or what, Jesse? Yeah, throw your bike in there, bro.
All right, bro.
All right. Get your gear, let's roll. Jesse, I'm just saying, should probably get a new helmet at one point. I mean, these smashed. Are you nervous or excited?
A little of both.
I mean, that's how I feel.
All backwards in my
Well, all right, everyone. The first round down the mountain on a downhill bike. The first thing I noticed right off the bat is this bike is so much harder to pedal to get started. I had to pedal so much harder, and I was like, man, like all the pedal bob that was going down, I was like, is this thing ever gonna get going? But now that I'm looking back at the footage, I didn't realize I was going pretty fast, you know, through all this little chunky rock stuff. This is kind of the mellow part of the trail, and then eventually starts picking up and it gets pretty chunky. But this first part, you're just kind of getting your pace, getting your momentum going, and then eventually you get to the part where it's really gnarly, and that's where the rocks drop off right here. I mean, they're big. You can't really tell on the GoPro footage, but man, this part is pretty gnarly. It took me a while to even get comfortable riding this thing in the first place.
You all right, Pimp?
I'm good. Slippery.
Yes.
Slippery. And like I said earlier, this is our local downhill trail. It's a double black diamond on Mingus Mountain called Trail 28. The reason it's a double black diamond is that it's very steep and the rocks are huge. And most people, you know, you're watching a GoPro video, you don't really get the real experience of what it really looks like in real life. You know, GoPro footage always tricks you. You look at it and you're like, oh, I could do that. And then you get there and you're like, wow, it's a lot bigger than I thought. So the one thing I really want to mention is that Jesse, who's following me right now with the follow cam, he's actually a really fast rider. I mean, he rides stuff like this, no problem. I mean, Jesse's a beast. But what I did realize is that this downhill bike is just like making me float over everything. And I didn't realize it while I was doing it. I realized it after watching the footage that it just sucks up every single chunky thing. And I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still work. It's not like you're just all of a sudden on a couch with wheels, but there definitely is a huge advantage to riding a downhill bike with suspension this big to where you're not getting as tired and you can just go right through it. This bike has 203 millimeters of suspension in the front and 208 in the rear, so you have a ton of travel to go through before you like really can bottom it out. And I don't even think I was going close to that. I've only actually ridden this trail probably about 5, maybe 6 times. The first time I came to this trail, I hated it. I never wanted to do it again. It was so rough. But then again, when I first rode this trail, I didn't have a lot of experience on a bike and riding these kind of trails in the first place. Now that I know all the lines and where everything's at, it's a lot easier to ride this trail, especially on like a 160 or more bike. I have taken it once on a 140 millimeter bike, which is my Vitus Escarp, and it was super fun on that, but it was definitely rough. Definitely a big jump from, you know, a 200 millimeter bike from a 140. So it's really hard to compare those two. So when we get on the bike on the next run, we're gonna be riding the 160 in the rear, 180 in the front, the Vitus Summit.
These corners are so hard. That's why I overshot that one thing, bro.
All right, so we shuttled back up to the top, and now Justin's on the YT and I'm on the Vitus. And there was something really interesting that happened right off the bat. Automatically, I realized I could pedal so much better and easier compared to the other bike. I mean, I could just get in those really, really granny gears on the parts that were a little bit slower, and then all of a sudden, like, I was going, you know, pretty good. I had a lot of good momentum, and it was fine. The other thing that was noticeable right in the beginning was that the Vitus was way more nimble than the downhill bike. And, you know, surprisingly, these bikes are very close to the same weight, but you did not notice it on the Vitus, which was really weird.
Yeah, you need momentum on this.
That's another thing that's really important to know about this trail, is that if you do not have momentum when you're going down it, you will get stuck because the rocks are so big. Like every time you'll get stuck or you just won't make it over something, so you have to keep your momentum going. At this point, I was feeling way more comfortable on the Vitus than I was when I was riding the YT. And it's probably just because I'm used to riding enduro bikes and not a downhill bike. But, you know, this bike felt really good underneath me, and it's a size large, and I usually ride a size medium or a small, but I felt right at home on this thing the whole time I was riding down the hill. Okay, so we're back in the garage. We just got done running both bikes. I've never ridden a downhill bike, and what was even crazier, this was a really good test for me because the fact that I've never really ridden your bike, so I had 2 new bikes to see exactly like how I really felt, like no biased like thoughts or anything like that, because neither bike was mine. I was just riding them. Riding a downhill bike is crazy. I mean, it doesn't feel the same as any other bike I've ever ridden before. How did you feel about riding a downhill bike?
Yeah, it's its own category for sure.
Yeah.
The feel, just a lot about it.
Yeah, it's its own beast. I mean, here's a couple of key points really, and we're just 2 guys who don't have any like geometries or any specs. We're not mechanics. I mean, I work on my own bike, but this is just basic stuff coming from someone who doesn't have the experience and the knowledge of like how all these things really work, other than the sense of pedaling a bike and changing gears. So for me, the downhill bike felt really heavy, like super heavy. And what's crazy is that both of these bikes are essentially close to the same weight, correct?
Yeah.
Like
Probably within a pound.
within a pound. So within a pound, I don't know how much they weigh. I mean, they're pretty heavy. So if you look up the YT specs, you'll see how heavy it is. But they felt really heavy. The YT was such a workout to get the momentum going, even though you're going downhill. But it's very plush when you're going through chunk and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't that bad once you get the momentum going, but before the momentum's there, it was hard to get the momentum started. I mean, did you feel the same way?
Yeah, that send it and forget it factor definitely plays a part in the downhill.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's crazy. And one of the big things that I noticed the most, like, besides the fact that there's less gears, the one thing I realized the most was the front end felt so heavy when I tried to get it off the ground. But I mean, when you're pointed down a trail, it's like, it's so cushiony and nice, but that front end felt really heavy. So that's where I guess the dual crown comes into play. It just makes you planted, I guess, when you're going downhill, you know, so.
Well, and you're definitely leagues ahead in jumping. And when you jumped it, you know the body physics of jumping.
Yeah.
Where when the one jump I came across, I tried to jump it, I just kind of let the jump do the work. I didn't really put my body in a position, and I really noticed the front dives down.
Oh yeah.
Where my bike,
yeah, dude,
kind of pops me up. Like I can't just send my bike and it'll give me the air.
Oh yeah. among many things, the one thing that I really noticed the most though, even though these bikes are the same weight, your bike is so much more nimble. Same 27.5-inch wheels, same, I mean, they're only what? Well, the rear end is 40 millimeters less than the downhill bike, but your front end's only 20 millimeters less than the downhill bike. And it still felt like the Vitus was just like this playful jump anything bike, even though it felt the same weight. How did you feel about that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Even over, you know, trying to pop the tire around obstacles in the trail was easier on this. Even though the weight thing is so close. The YT just, for me being a first time, didn't have the nimbleness, or maybe I didn't know how to maneuver it yet.
Sure. Well, I didn't either because I had never ridden it either. So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, just kind of trying it out. Another thing that I will say is I'm glad that I did not buy a downhill bike. Like this was more of an experiment for both of us to see if we even really wanted to do this. Now, when I say I don't want to buy a downhill bike, I mean I don't want to buy a full downhill bike. But I do have a project coming up in the near future where it's an enduro downhill build. That'll be coming a while from now, but eventually it'll be coming out because I'm waiting for my order to come through, and it hasn't come through yet. So, but I can see how the dual crown would be like the most ultimate thing at a bike park. You know, like at a bike park, smashing jumps, going through crazy chunk. But for what we do on a daily basis, I feel like the downhill bike is just so much overkill.
Yeah.
As much as it looks cool.
Yeah, we would definitely have to make a lot of more road trips.
Oh yeah, to make it worth it.
Useful.
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is downhill and bike parks is where those bikes shine. We already knew that going into this, but we were still curious to see the end results. Is it really that bad? Is it really that hard to pedal it? Is it, you know, like everyone says it, but everyone has their own opinions. I mean, you ride a heavy bike. Your bike is super heavy, but for you, you kill it on trails. So it's just like you're climbing stuff anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know that I would, like, I don't think I'd be taking a downhill bike to hangover anytime soon.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
That'd be kind of terrifying.
The limitation of the forks turning radius was the biggest one for me.
Yeah.
But it still, in the end, wasn't a huge hurdle.
No, I mean, when I looked at the footage, I mean, you were taking all those hairpin turns pretty decently. I mean, you took a lot of them better than I did, to be honest.
Right.
So, I mean, you were going through them and you had the right balance, but it's just not where that bike shines, especially when it just like stops at a certain spot.
Yeah, that was something.
But also, like, hairpin turns for me are just not really like my strong suit anyway, regardless, you know what I mean?
And yeah, the hairpins that we deal with, it's not like you're going to be going Mach 1.
I mean, I'm trying to, but I'm not getting there. But yeah, so I mean, overall, I mean, for me, a downhill bike is just not gonna be my priority thing. Here's the thing, I may rent one going to a bike park just to like try it out or do whatever until I get my project built, but I don't know, I'm pretty happy with riding an enduro over a downhill right now. And you know, my enduro, I have my Evil Reckoning and I love that thing, and it's just a beast at the park. I mean, as you saw in other videos where I'm just like smashing on that thing, and I love that thing.
Yeah.
And I can see if a downhill would have its place for someone who's riding a lot of park or you're near a park, but if you're not living near a park and you don't go to park all the time, I don't see the point of getting one, to be honest, because you're only gonna, I mean, for me, it was like, I'm gonna ride it 10 times a year max.
Right.
If I get a downhill bike.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really worth the $4,000 to buy a brand new bike for that.
Right.
But don't get me wrong, I really wanted it. It looked pretty cool. So we'll just have to wait and see. It was fun to experiment with it, but I'm glad I experimented with it because it really cleared up my need for wanting a full downhill bike. And now I don't want one.
Yeah. And the looks thing, that'll suck you in.
Oh yeah, dual crowns look so tough.
They're awesome looking, but
yeah, it's just, it's out of my league. I'm not a downhill rider. I ride trails. I mean, I do jumps and trails, and where I live, there's not a bike park. The closest bike park is 6 hours away. So for me, I won't be buying a downhill bike. I mean, we have a downhill trail, but I'm not gonna just ride that thing every day just for that.
Yeah.
Like,
it kind of really did show enduros are as close as you can get to like an all-around, do-it-all.
Yes.
It may lack in trail a little bit, it may lack in downhill a little bit, but overall.
But we're talking minimal.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like minimal in both of those leagues, because
Yeah.
you can do both, you know?
Right, right.
Like, I honestly don't see with this bike there being any limitations downhill.
No.
At all.
No.
Like, this thing is just a beast.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. right, that's pretty much it. That's our opinions. That's what we did, and I hope you liked the video. If you do, hit that like button. If you want to see what we're up to next, hit that subscribe button, and always remember, start small and go huge. Thanks for watching.